Hey guys, how's it going? Value Venture Investing here today. So today we're going to be talking about Virgin Galactic. As I'm sure you've been aware, it's just been getting destroyed as of late. So what's going to happen with the stock going forward? Did I buy any more shares? As you guys all know, I've been pretty bearish on the company at different points of time, and they just released their Q4 2021 results as well as their full year results. So today we're going to be talking about those. We're going to quickly go through their top line, bottom line, and cash position results. Then we're going to go through the presentation and the earnings call, and then we're going to go through the financials, and I'm going to give you guys my opinion on what I think personally the stock's going to do and what I did with my shares or my lack of shares. So first things first, we're at Q4 here, 2021. I laid out the full year here for you guys, Q1, Q2, Q3, and Q4. So that's a full year, 2021. We're going into 2022. Revenue was 141,000. Again, guys, this is in thousands. This is the way they represent it on their financials. It's much easier this way. So there was some revenue again, but essentially nothing. Going back last quarter, we had about 2.5 million. If you want to see the reasons for that, watch my last video. And we've had some quarters with 571,000. So nothing too surprising there. Net income was a loss of just over $82 million. Last quarter was not as bad. However, I believe this was expected. We've been seeing this drop and the cash position remain relatively strong. Cash is about $905,000. They show it slightly higher, but they include restricted cash and stuff like that. So this is cash, short-term investments, and long-term investments as well. So it's nice to see that they have a relatively strong cash position, but this just shows basically the surface of what's going on. Let's take a look into the presentation and give you guys a little bit more insight there. As always, the presentation opened up with the CEO, and one of the first things that he mentioned, I don't know if you've been following the company or not, was that the chairman, Chamath, actually has stepped down from the board. So I think this is something that's actually maybe hammered this company a little bit more because he's kind of a larger than life figure. But this is a guy that's been like really bullish on Bitcoin. He was involved in Facebook as well. So it might be kind of tarnishing his reputation lately that Bitcoin's not been doing quite as well. And it can be a little show of lack of confidence that he's no longer the chairman of the board here. But over long periods of time, I think, this is something that's kind of going to be forgotten about. The next slide, they did a highlight of 2021. In my last video, we pretty much went through this. They did something very similar. The one thing that they did mention here was that on Q4 of this year, they're still on track for commercial service. And on Q3 of this year, they're expected to complete their vehicle enhancement program. Again, we talked about that on the last video. We'll get into that a little bit more here. So the good news, at least here, is that that hasn't changed, that is still on track. And speaking of the enhancement program, the slide here, they talked about it a little bit more in detail. Enhancement period designed to improve flight efficiency, increase time between maintenance periods, and improve vehicle reliability, predictability, and durability. Again, I spoke about these upgrades last quarter, so see my last video. Then they went on to talk about commercial service with the VSS Unity and VMS Eve on track for Q4 2022. Again, so we're on track here. They're saying that the monthly turnaround for Unity due to testing and verification will be monthly, like I just stated here as well. And then Unity, of course, is supposed to fly monthly. Commercial service with VSS imagine is on track for 2023, and they're saying right now that it's going to be about twice per month. But we'll get a little bit into this a little bit more further in the presentation. Then they talked about their leadership team. Really nothing here. The only thing they talked about was they add Blair Rich, talked about what she did as well. They do this quite often where they kind of like to talk about the talent that they brought in, and it changes quite frequently here. So it's just something to keep in mind. But I wouldn't be focused on it too much right now. Now here, I think this is the biggest bit of information that came out of this entire presentation, okay? There's not much on this picture that they show here. They just said there's 250 seats remaining within the first 1,000, and then a priority list is to follow. However, if you remember my last video, they said that they had 700. So now they have 250 remaining. As far as I'm concerned, they've only added about 50 in 3 months. Now that's still quite a bit of people. Reminder, guys, it's $150,000 deposit against the $450,000 total cost, and $25,000 of that is non-refundable. Now they're talking about this being a membership fee, and they get a little bit into this in the next slide here. We'll get to it. So I was kind of wondering to myself, like, well, what does this mean, membership? you can't fly or whatever, but you're part of the membership. So they're saying after this first 1,000 fly, they're going to have a priority list with a $10,000 deposit to join. So going on to the next slide here, they talk about future astronaut membership included with a space flight reservation. Now, I don't recall them talking about this before. Comment down below if you guys do recall this. But I really like this idea. So many things are becoming subscription based, right? So they're basically saying if you're part of this, membership, you're going to see trips around the world, experiences. Recently, they did Antarctica. So it's kind of like it adds to the whole experience. I talked about their spaceports before, how they're going to try to make it an experience. So maybe that, that's something that could generate a subscription model in the future. So again, we'll wait to see or hear a little bit more about that. But that was something I went, wow, that would be kind of cool, because the CEO, well, not the CEO anymore, Branson is very into exploring. He's very into like extreme activities, obviously, this company. So to add this added layer of subscription based, yeah, I find that very interesting. However, the news being that they only had, 250 more, or rather 50 more in that 3-month period, I kind of thinking to myself, like, how much long-term demand is there going to be for this kind of stuff, right? If you are only having an addressable market that's so big, how is that going to drive revenue in the future? And I think we're looking at about $450 million in revenue, in the first year if they have 1,000 astronauts, right? Which is a lot of money, but to justify the valuation, I mean, we need a lot more. But anyway, we'll have to wait and see how that goes. Then they're talking more about their manufacturing strategy. So they're talking about 3 flights a month right now. It sounds like going into 2022 here and then into 2023, but they're saying that they need a larger fleet. So they're saying the current manufacturing approach is designed for prototyping and flight test phase, vertically integrated in manufacturing and highly flexible and low volume. However, they're looking more towards the future. So the future fleet manufacturing approach, so they're trying to lean on more design for high rate production, maintaining more of an in-house design, engineering, and final assembly, but also leveraging tier 1 suppliers from major sub-assemblies, they're saying. So basically what that means in English is contracting out, taking advantage of talent pools outside the company and not having this vertically integrated approach that they have right now. So that remains to be seen how that happens, how much they can increase their manufacturing capacity by doing it this way. So again, not a huge amount of information on this, but that's something that's kind of new. And you know what, it really could help them if, curtail their costs potentially. Again, we just have to see how it turns out. Then the CFO came on and he spoke about a raise that happened here recently. I think it was in the last month or something, if you've been paying attention. They raised $425 million through a convertible debt offering. And he said that they did this, to take advantage of the low interest rate, which is true. Rates are probably going to be rising. He mentioned that as well. So he thought it was an opportune time to do it. But he also managed that, through financial instruments, they hedged the dilution up to a price of $20.06 per share. And it's to do with essentially like a call option thing. So that was great news for me, because that kind of shows that these individuals who are part of this convertible debt offering have the option, as far as I'm aware, comment down below if I'm wrong, I understood this wrong, to convert it at over $20 per share. And where we're sitting at today, we're below $9 per share. So we will experience dilution if we see above 20, but that's a huge premium from where it is right now. Perhaps maybe not where some people bought. But at least from my own perspective, where I may be involved, it's a good thing, and maybe new investors going forward. Again, here, just a little bit of a recap about their fleet expansion and timeline. They talk about, first of all, VSS Unity entering commercial service in Q4 of this year. Again, turnaround time, they're expecting monthly. Next is the Imagine. Again, this we talked about is going to be about, maybe the first quarter or whatever of 2023 with a 2-week turnaround. Test flights to begin in the 3rd quarter of this year. It's supposed to have higher flight cadence and lower cost per flight. And then, of course, the big thing being the Delta class production model. They're guessing it's entering commercial service around 2026, and estimated turnaround time about 1 week. So they're also expecting revenue research flights at approximately 2025. Again, higher flight cadence and lower cost per flight. And then they stated after this that they were expecting positive free cash flow in 2026. That's what they're aiming for. That seems a bit, you know, not too far away considering we're in 2022 right now, but we'll see how that goes going forward. Then they went into the actual financial result. We'll get into that in a sec here. They talked about the fourth quarter. So this is Q4 2021. Again, net loss of around $81 million. Well, it was actually $82,245,000, but that was compared to $104 million a year ago. Adjusted EBITDA of a loss of $65 million compared to $60 million in the prior year. On a year-over-year basis, for 2021, they're saying the net loss was about $353 million, but that was compared to $645 million for the year ago. And adjusted EBITDA totaled negative $245 million compared to $232 million for the year ago before that. So again, it's, you know, it's improved, but still they are bleeding cash pretty readily. In terms of free cash flow, the fourth quarter this year is about negative $67 million. In terms of guidance, the first quarter, so Q1 2022, is expected to be around the range of negative 75 to 85 million. They talk about their cash equivalents, and marketable securities here. Again, 931 million. I'm not sure exactly where they got the 31 versus the 905. But you got to keep in mind here that this does not include the recent capital raise. So really, when you're looking at it, you know, they have over $1 billion of cash, which is definitely comforting going forward. Taking a look at their financial statements. Now, this is the income statement here. We got for 3 months ended, and we're comparing the year-over-year Q4 2021 versus 2020. Again, revenue was 141,000 versus nothing on the year-ago quarter. Research and development, something I always like to watch. It's surprisingly, it's not up much from the year-ago quarter. It's pretty much in line at, you know, 41,500,000 versus 41,481,000. So it actually hasn't changed that much. So the total comprehensive loss, again, was about $82 million versus over 100 a year ago. And you can see down below here, actually, their basic and diluted shares, how they've increased. If you're, you know, interested in dilution, there you go. You can see right there on the financial statement. In terms of the balance sheet here, again, guys, cash equivalents, marketable securities is short term, marketable securities long term, and you can add those up to get their cash position. I don't include restricted cash. I mean, you can't you really wanted to, but I'm not going to include that, and I don't think they do really for the most part either. So their total assets are over $1 billion. Pretty big, especially when you compare it to their liabilities being relatively low at this point. Taking a look at their statement of cash flows here, again, just a couple notable things here. Again, I mentioned this before, guys, not a big fan of the stock-based compensation going up over $13 million there. I think they need to perform a lot more before that happens. Another notable thing here, purchases of marketable securities. So interesting to see that, like some other companies that I mentioned, that they're, you know, building, as you can see from the balance sheet, short and long-term securities there. So $96 million there, and the cash and cash equivalent and restricted cash at the end of the period was about $550 million rather. So overall, pretty predictable quarter. A couple kind of positive things. The offering that isn't going to cause as much dilution as I thought with that call option, cash position pretty solid, and the fact that they haven't pushed anything further back, because that's been something pretty common with this company. So, you know, that might have been the reason that we saw the stock, I think it was yesterday when they reported, after hours spiked quite a bit. Today it was only about 3% or something. It went up, but at one point it was over 9%. So actually what I've done with my position, I still think this is obviously a very speculative bet, but for the size of my portfolio, I've taken almost it's almost nothing compared to the size of my portfolio. I've got a couple hundred shares. I bought some at 10, a little too early, should have waited. And yesterday I bought it at around $7.70, so I'm up a bit on that. And so I expect, just in my own personal opinion, that this thing is eventually going to run. I don't know if it's going to happen at any point in the near future, but it was just too tempting yesterday not to add a little bit more, especially considering the results weren't that horrible. And I think we might be getting some good news going forward this year, as long as things don't go off the rails, off track again, right? So would love to know what you guys' thoughts are on the quarter, if you bought any, if you're holding any, what you think is going to happen to the stock, short or long term. Would love to hear that down below, so comment, guys. Don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps the channel. It's going to be it for today. See you in the next one.